They say dogs don't talk, but Thunder did. Not with words, not with barking, but with the bloodied badge he dropped at Joseph Whitehorse's feet on a quiet Tennessee morning that cracked the sky open like a war drum. The German Shepherd came limping out of the mist like a ghost half-starved. RIB is showing fur matted from rain, and Durtan placed the blood-soaked police badge right on Joseph's porch. Just as the first slant of sunrise hit the smoky mountain hills, Joseph's coffee mug slipped from his hand and shattered because he recognized that badge. It belonged to his grandson, Detective Jacob Whitehorse, his pride, his last blood connection to a world that didn't speak Cherokee anymore. The boy who still came for Sunday dinners and sat quiet when the elders told stories. The boy who wore that silver badge with honor, and now it was slick with blood. And Joseph didn't need words to understand what Thunder was trying to tell him. Something terrible had happened. Something worse was coming. Thunder sat back on his haunches, his intelligent amber eyes locked on the old man's weathered face. Not blinking, not moving, just waiting. Like a soldier on post. Like he'd come a long way to deliver this. And he wasn't going anywhere until Joseph got the message. "Lord have mercy," Joseph whispered, voice rough as gravel. "You're telling me something I don't want to hear." The badge was still warm. The blood on it hadn't dried yet. Thunder hadn't made a sound in months. Not since the day his partner, Officer Sarah Rainwater, died in a roadside explosion on tribal land accident no one ever investigated right after. That Thunder had disappeared into the Tennessee wilderness like he was chasing ghosts. Until now, and he hadn't come back. Empty-pod.Joseph. Single quotes as cabin stood tucked into the hills outside Millbrook Half, a day's walk from the nearest paved road, a world away from any city, a place where old Cherokee blood still flowed through the ground and the trees whispered in the wind. Thunder was pressing against his leg now, solid and trembling. Joseph reached down and picked up the badge. His fingers shook not from age this time, but something deeper, dread, the kind that sets in your bones and won't let go. Then the phone rang, a landline barely used. Only 3 people in the world even had the number. No one called this early, not unless it was bad. He picked it up. Joseph Whitehorse. A voice came through, electronically distorted male, flat, cold. "Old man, you've got 18 hours. Sign over the Sacred Grove to Stonecrow Development, or your grandson dies. Tick-tock." Click. Joseph stood there, still holding the phone like it might come alive in his hand. 18 hours to sell the last untouched piece of Cherokee land in the county, the Sacred Grove, where his ancestors were buried, where the children still danced during naming ceremonies, where the air still carried songs in a language the world was trying to forget. Thunder nudged his leg again. The dog's gaze flicked to the badge in Joseph's hand and back to the forest line, as if saying, "You coming or not?" 6 months earlier, Thunder had shown up at Joseph's door looking like death. Joseph fed him, nursed him back to health, patched the scars left by bullets and betrayal, but he couldn't fix the dog's soul. Not after Sarah's death. Thunder had gone quiet, stayed quiet until today. And now Joseph saw something in those amber eyes he hadn't seen since the war. Purpose. "You know where he is, don't you, boy?" Joseph murmured. Thunder barked. Once sharp. Clean, the kind of bark you don't forget. Joseph flinched. His grandson was alive somewhere, but not for long. He looked down at Thunder and straightened his spine the way he used to before battle. "We've got 18 hours? Let's move." The battered old pickup truck kicked up dust as it tore down the gravel road toward town. Thunder rode shotgun, his massive head hanging out the window, nose twitching like radar. His body still bore the marks of his past, a notched ear from a riot line, a burn scar across his shoulder from Sarah's last shift, and yet he looked ... alive, focused like the old Thunder. Joseph gripped the wheel tighter. The badge was now wrapped in a clean handkerchief and tucked over his heart. They weren't calling the cops. Whoever was behind this had reached deep reach, and Joseph knew better than to trust a badge just because it was shiny dot. No, they were going to someone who'd seen Thunder in his worst moments and never turned away. Someone who knew how to read pain in animals, and in old men who'd lost too much. They were going to see Dr. Mary Clearwater. Desert Paws Veterinary Clinic sat on the edge of Millbrook, its wooden sign hanging crooked from rusted chains. paint peeling, windows fogged, but it smelled of hope. Mary stepped out from the side door just as Joseph pulled in. She was 30-something, Cherokee and Irish roots, hair a mess from the humidity. The kind of woman who could reset a dislocated joint with one hand while comforting a grieving child with the other. "Joseph," she called. "Everything okay?" Thunder was already out of the truck and charging toward her, his body crashing into her legs like a freight train of need. He didn't bark, he whined, long, low, like he was crying from somewhere deep inside. "Whoa, boy," Mary whispered, steadying herself. "What's going on with you?" She ran her fingers through his fur, and Thunder leaned into her like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Joseph stepped out of the truck, holding the wrapped badge. He didn't speak until Thunder backed away and let Mary see. His eyes that shimmered with something ancient and broken. "Doc," Joseph said, voice full of gravel and ghosts, "I need your help. Thunder found something this morning, and I think someone's in trouble." Mary knelt down, still touching Thunder's chest. "What kind of trouble?" Joseph unwrapped the handkerchief. Mary's face went pale. She knew the badge. Everyone in town did. Jacob had been missing for 3 days. "Oh my God," Joseph nodded slowly. "I can't call the cops," he said. "The man who took him, he's got connections." He said, "If I involve the law, Jacob dies." Mary's hands were shaking. 18 hours. That's all we've got. If you believe in the power of animals, justice, and the ties that bind us, don't forget to subscribe to Brave Animals for more stories like this. Real heroes have paws. Mary stood still for a long moment, looking between Joseph and the dog she'd grown to love. Thunder's eyes met hers again, and something flickered in her brain. A memory, a voice, a name she didn't know. But she trusted him, and she trusted the old man too. "What do you need me to do?" she asked softly. Joseph looked toward the woods. "Follow us," he said. Thunder's got a trail. The old wall clock inside the clinic ticked another minute away. 17 hours, and Thunder was already moving. Thunder's paws barely made a sound as he weaved through the trees behind the vet clinic, nose low, body taut. Every step was precise, every twitch of his ear calculated. He wasn't wandering, he was tracking. Joseph Whitehorse followed with heavy breaths, legs stiff from age but burning with purpose. Mary Clearwater moved beside him, her sneakers crunching. Twigs, a backpack of medical gear slung over one shoulder. Her pulse hadn't stopped racing since she saw the bloodied badge. They'd told no one, not the sheriff, not the tribal council. Too many things felt familiar. Thunder stopped suddenly, head snapping up, his ears rotated, scanning. "It, boy?" Joseph asked. The dog gave one sharp bark, then trotted forward toward the tree line. Mary looked at Joseph. That badge, it really belonged to Jacob, didn't it? Joseph didn't answer right away. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out the badge again, this time unwrapped raw. Eyes welled up. "I treated that boy's dog when he was little," she whispered. "Front. I still think about that tree." Joseph nodded slowly. Thunder barked again, sharper this time. They quickened their pace. They crossed a dried creek bed and ducked beneath a pine bough before Thunder came to a full stop near a twisted oak with exposed roots like knuckles reaching from the dirt. He began to dig. Fast, desperate. Dirt flew. "What's he doing?" Mary asked. "Looking," Joseph said grimly, "or remembering." Within seconds, Thunder hit something solid, a rusted corner of a metal box. His knees popped. Like firewood, he pulled the box free and popped the latch dot inside. Waterproof bags, moldy paperwork, a cracked audio recorder wrapped in plastic, and a faded photograph. Joseph's hands trembled. Mary reached in and lifted the picture. 2 young women in uniform. One was unmistakably Officer Sarah Rainwater, the other Mary froze. "That's me," she whispered. She didn't remember taking the photo, didn't remember the uniform or the smile, but she knew it was her. "Doc," Joseph said softly. Mary stumbled backward, her vision blurred. Her ears rang. That familiar migraine was returning, the kind she'd only gotten since the accident. "Mary," Joseph said, steadying her, "you okay?" I don't know." Images flashed in her mind. Mary Clearwater. It was Mary Whitehorse. They made camp near a grove of sycamores. As dusk bled across the sky in shades of fire, Thunder lay watchful at the edge, eyes locked on the darkness between trees. Mary sat on a log. Car crash. They said I was driving too fast. My license was missing. No ID, no known family. Joseph listened in silence, staring into the flames. I built a new life, she continued. Got my degree, became a vet. Figured whoever I was before didn't matter. Joseph finally spoke. I buried my daughter 15 years ago. Closed casket, wrecked car, burned body. Nothing left but dental records and a little necklace she always wore. What kind of necklace? Mary asked. Joseph hesitated, then pulled something from around his neck. A simple piece of leather cord. Holding a small beaded charm, Mary reached instinctively toward her collarbone. There, beneath her shirt, was an identical cord. Her fingers found the same shape, same weight, same charm. Joseph's chest rose and fell like a collapsing mountain. You're my daughter? He whispered. And Mary, for the first time in her adult life, believed it by morning. The trail was growing warmer. Joseph and Mary followed, saying little, both shaken. Mary kept touching the charm, his cadence, his quiet strength. I used to dream about a rocking chair, she said as they walked, sitting in someone's lap. Braiding beads, someone singing. Joseph nodded slowly. That was your mama. She looked down. Do you think I'll remember everything? He gave her a sad smile. Maybe, or maybe, just what you need to remember. Thunder barked again, this time loud, urgent. They climbed a ridge. Below, in a hollow between two hills, lay a half-collapsed root cellar, overgrown with vines, covered in dirt. The 30s, to store vegetables and whiskey. They sealed it up after a black bear fell in and nearly died. Now, fresh tire tracks scarred the mud outside the doors. Someone had been here. Recently, Thunder growled, ears forward, and then a voice weak, barely above a whisper, floated up through the earth. Gee, Grandpa. Joseph's heart seized. Jacob, I'm here, the voice cracked. It's bad, Grandpa. Fire. 3 men emerged, rifles in hand, faces blank, and behind them a man Joseph hadn't seen in 20 years. Tommy, Blackwood, his son. Mary gasped. Thunder snarled. Joseph's legs nearly gave out. Tommy smiled, thin and bitter. Well, isn't this a family reunion? Tommy looked older than Joseph remembered, bloated, gray eyes empty. You shouldn't have come, P, he said. This isn't about you. You're holding my grandson underground, Joseph snapped. You damn well made it about me. Mary stepped forward. He's dying in there, Tommy. Smoke, no ventilation. Tommy's eyes flicked to her. Something dark crossed his face. Funny, he said. You look just like someone I used to know. He walked closer. You're not just some vet, are you? Mary froze. Tommy grinned. Oh God, he said, like the punchline of a cruel joke had just landed. It's you. Joseph stepped between them. Leave her alone. Tommy's grin vanished. No, P, she's part of this too. Snooping around for months, FBI, tribal land deals, Sacred Grove surveys. You think this is just a ransom? No, old man. This is payback. Your whole bloodline's been trying to undo me. Yourself won. Thunder barked short, sharp, then took off at a sprint toward the trees. He stopped beside an old oak and began to dig again. Joseph and Mary rushed after him. Thunder unearthed another. Maps, photos, audio tapes. Mary gasped. She was investigating casino corruption. Joseph felt the earth tilt beneath him. Thunder nudged something toward. Joseph's heart shattered. Jacob had been following her trail. Thunder had known all along. Smoke. The bulldozers had started early. Tommy grinned. 18 hours was generous. Sacred Grove's going to be a parking lot by sundown. But Thunder wasn't done. He took off running straight toward the sound. Joseph had forgotten how to love, and he wasn't going to wait for permission. The bulldozers were louder. Thunder had vanished over the ridge like a bullet, charging headlong toward the destruction without hesitation, staring at the rising smoke, his fists clenched at his sides, old bones trembling from something deeper than age. Rage, the kind of rage that built up over generations and settled into your DNA like old sorrow. Tommy Blackwood adjusted his rifle strap and watched his father without flinching. I told you this would happen, he said flatly. You chose dead men over your living son. So now, we all lose something." Joseph turned slowly. "No, Tommy," he said, voice like broken gravel. "You chose greed over your family, over your sister, over your son, over the land that raised you." Mary stood beside him, pale but steady. Her eyes never left Tommy's. "You left me to die," she said. "You told them I was gone, but I wasn't. I lived. I just forgot." Tommy's jaw twitched. "It wasn't supposed to be like that." "You hit me," she said. "You made sure I crashed. And when I crawled out, bleeding and alone, you let the world think I was buried." "I was trying to protect us," Tommy barked. "You were going to expose everything. You didn't understand the pressure, the deals, the threats. I was trying to survive in a world that never gave a damn about us." Joseph stepped forward. "That grove holds our ancestors. You sold their resting place like a strip mall lease. Do this, Pete." "I already buried you in my heart once," Joseph replied. "You don't get to threaten me with a second funeral." Thunder's bark cracked through the emergent, wild, unrelenting Mary spun around. "He's found something." They took off down the slope, ignoring Tommy's shouted threats. Thunder's trail led through twisted brush, down to the burned-out cella where Jacob was still trapped. Smoke billowed from the entrance, now thick and dark, the scent of accelerants unmistakable. Joseph dropped to one knee and shouted into the earth. "Jacob!" A faint cough. Then a voice rasped through the smoke. Fire, spreading. Mary ran to the edge, scanning the structure. "There's a secondary tunnel," Joseph said, eyes wide. They didn't hesitate. The tunnel mouth was hidden beneath years of vines and debris. But Thunder had found it, paws covered in dirt, muzzle streaked with soot. The dog barked, backed up, and barked again. Mary and Joseph got to work, pulling away fallen branches and kicking through loose stones. It couldn't steal instinct. They broke through the entrance, the rush of hot air nearly knocking them back. Inside was thick with heat and smoke, every breath like swallowing burning sawdust. The concrete walls shimmered. Water dripped somewhere deep in the dark. A wall, pale, face streaked with ash. His left leg bent unnaturally and bound with melted rope. Mary dropped beside him instantly. "Airway's clear," she said. "Pulse is shallow. We've got minutes." Joseph knelt and cradled Jacob's hand. "Hold on, son. You're gonna be okay." Jacob's eyes fluttered open. "Sheriff Stonecrow. He's the one. It's all him. Tommy, just the front man. But he built the whole operation. Bribes, surveys, land grabs, casino money." One cutting them down, Mary treated Jacob's leg the best she could, wrapping it tightly and giving him a small dose of morphine from her kit. Tunnel might collapse. Thunder barked once, then trotted deeper into the shadows. Joseph hesitated. "Thunder!" The dog turned and nudged a section of the wall. Joseph pressed his hand to the concrete. Hollow, they tore at the bricks. Behind them, firelight was beginning to flicker at the tunnel mouth. Something was pushing through the rubble. Inside the cavity, wrapped in plastic, was a small waterproof bag. Mary opened it carefully. Inside a micro SD card, labeled Rainwater 2847. It was sealed in tape with two initials scribbled in ink. J.W. Jacobs' hands trembled as he took it. 18 months, every file, phone taps, financials, Stonecrow's whole network. Mary swallowed hard. "We have to get this out." The world above was on fire. Flames licked the edge of the sacred grove. Chainsaws roared in the distance. Machines. Joseph carried Jacob on his back. Mary ran beside them. Helicopters thundered overhead, out of the trees. Figures in tactical gear emerged, FBI patches visible on their shoulders. They surrounded the construction site with trained precision. Riflemen dropped to one knee. A megaphone repeated the command. Behind them stood Agent Sarah Chen, dark ponytail whipping in the rotor wash. She locked eyes with Joseph and nodded once. They'd come. Jacob was rushed to an emergency medic unit. Mary handed the micro SD card to Agent Chen, who accepted it like a priest, receiving a sacred text. "This is it," Mary said. Thunder sat nearby, ears pinned. "Casino fraud, land theft. This dog just handed us a career's worth of indictments." Joseph placed a hand on Thunder's head. "He's not just a dog." Then came the crack of a gunshot. Everyone froze. From the east, body dropped like trash in the dirt. Stone Crow walked calmly toward the FBI line. "Stand down, Sheriff," Agent Chen shouted. He smiled faintly. "I warned that boy. Loose ends." Joseph stepped forward, jaw clenched. "You murdered your own kin. Put food on tables." Mary stepped up beside her father. "Nobody cares about old bones and dead languages. They care about money, and I delivered." On the man who had taken his partner from him, Joseph whispered, "He remembers your voice." Stone Crow's smile faltered. Then Thunder charged. Thunder moved like a bullet with teeth. He broke into a sprint, his paws pounding the scorched ground. Eyes locked on the man who had taken everything from him, his partner, his purpose, and 18 months of peace. The sheriff barely had time to register what was happening before the German Shepherd collided with him full force, knocking him backward with a snarl that echoed across the hollow. The rifle clattered to the ground. Stone Crow hit the dirt hard, wind knocked out of him, arms flailing. Thunder's jaws snapped inches from his throat. He was doing exactly what he'd been trained to do: restrain, disarm, detain. Joseph stood frozen, watching it all play out like a dream, his old bones vibrating with pride. A dog anymore. This was the spirit of the grove made flesh. Stone Crow struggled, but Thunder had the leverage. The dog growled low, nose inches from the sheriff's jaw, daring him to twitch wrong. Federal agents moved in, weapons drawn. Within seconds, 2 agents were pinning Stone Crow's arms while Thunder released his grip and stepped back. Chest heaving. Agent Chen barked orders. "Get this man in cuffs. Secure the perimeter. Clear the grove." 2 agents hauled Stone Crow to his feet. His face was red, spattered with dirt, but his expression was cold, calculating. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Your warrant doesn't mean a damn thing here." Agent Chen pulled a folder from her vest and flipped it open. "Actually, it does. Per federal statute 18 U.S.C. section 1163 and section 1166, you're under arrest for conspiracy, bribery, racketeering, destruction of sacred indigenous land, and obstruction of justice." She stepped closer. "Oh, and murder," she added quietly. "We have Officer Rainwater's audio. You killed a cop." Some of the oaks, those who had stood tall for over 200 years, were now nothing but his ears, but with something deeper. Memory, blood, bone. They were crying. Mary stepped up beside him, her arm brushing his. "Can they stop it?" "Maybe," he whispered. "But some of it's gone forever. Got a medevac team landing in 10 minutes. Jacob's stable, but he needs oxygen and full imaging." Joseph nodded. "And the evidence? We've already started uploading the SD card." She documented every transaction, every payoff. Stone Crow wasn't working alone. This network spans at least 4 states. Mary swallowed hard. He used Tommy, used our people. Agent Chen hesitated, but when he tried to pull out, Stone Crow made sure he couldn't. Mary blinked against the tears rising in her throat. He was scared. "Yeah," Joseph said quietly, "but scared men don't bury their sisters alive." Hours passed. Fire crews from 3 counties worked through the night. Some of the grove was saved, not all. Joseph spent most of the night sitting beside one of them, praying softly in the Cherokee tongue. Mary knelt beside Jacob's cot in the mobile field unit. He was pale but conscious now, voice raw but steady. Is it over? He was never the same. Mary looked out the tent flap. Thunder was curled at the edge of the trees, facing outward as if still guarding the line. He just needed a reason. The casino developers were hit with lawsuits, charges, and injunctions. Their construction crews scattered like mice. And Jacob Whitehorse's name was cleared publicly and in full. His undercover work became part of a national report. Tommy Blackwood's funeral was small. No cameras, no politics. And a few of the old-timers who remembered, "He betrayed this land," he said. "But he came from it." When it was Joseph's turn to speak, "But I believe, in the next life, the ancestors will show him what he couldn't see in this one." Mary wept softly. "Or forgiving." The weeks passed slowly. Mary moved into the cabin down the hill, Joseph's old place. Now he was the guardian. He patrolled the grove at dawn and dusk, never straying too far, never resting too long. Visitors from the tribe sometimes left bones, toys, sat on the porch. Thunder walked over and laid something gently at his feet. It was a small carved figurine, an owl, shaped from the burned heartwood of one of the fallen trees. Joseph picked it up slowly. He whispered. Thunder wagged his tail once. Not a full wag, Dot. Just enough to say yes. The wind shifted at dusk. It was the scent of scorched memory of trees that had stood longer than any living soul, now gone in minutes. He sat in his chair, staring across the valley, and wondered if the spirits were still singing or if they'd gone quiet. Out of the cabin with 2 mugs of black coffee, and handed one to him. She wore her old denim jacket, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back in a loose braid. Stonecrow's lawyers filed for a continuance. They're trying to claim tribal immunity. Joseph snorted. Thunder lifted his head at the word buried. Dot. Joseph caught the glance. You still think there's more? Where the grass had just started growing back through the ash. His ears were perked, tail stiff, gaze trained on the woods behind the grove. Mary followed him with her eyes. The trail led deeper than usual past the edge of the sacred grove, through old hunting trails barely used anymore, just a pile of rust and old beams. Now, tucked under a moss-covered hill, Mary approached first. Looks like someone used this as a hunting blind, or storage, a steel plate bolted into the ground. What? Joseph knelt beside it. This ain't tribal. It's not even military issue. They pried the hatch open, and the smell hit them first stale air, motor oil, and something metallic. Inside was a ladder leading down. Joseph looked at Mary. You don't have to go. I want to. Against the far wall stood a filing cabinet, a crate of sealed envelopes, and a locked safe. Dot. Thunder growled at the safe. Dot. Mary moved toward the cabinet first. Inside were photographs. Even Agent Sarah Chen's photo was in there. Joseph pulled one out. It was a grainy photo of Sarah, rainwater meeting with someone wearing a ball cap, half their face obscured. Next to it, in another folder, were signed contracts, property sales, land surveys, payments issued in crypto and shell company accounts. Mary gasped. Joseph, these aren't just local. They've been under investigation for trafficking and environmental crimes. Joseph's face darkened. Stonecrow wasn't the root. He'd done this once before, back in Vietnam. Helping clear out hidden bunkers, old muscle memory took over. The lock clicked open. Dot inside. The folder tucked beneath the gun that made Mary's heart stop. It was labeled White Horse Collateral. She opened it slowly. Photos of Mary, her veterinary clinic, her daily routine. They knew I was alive. There was a note tucked into the folder, written in Stonecrow's handwriting. Keep her quiet. If she remembers, she burns us all. Mary stepped back. Her face went pale. They were waiting. If I ever came too close. Joseph wrapped his arms around her, voice steady. They failed. You're here. We all are. By the time they made it back to the house, night had fallen. Agent Chen was waiting on the porch with 2 federal vehicles behind her. She stood when she saw the evidence bags in Joseph's hands. I had a feeling you'd find more, she said. Joseph handed her the folder marked White Horse. She scanned the documents, her jaw tightening. This is enough to indict 3 more state-level officials, maybe 2 senators. Mary showed her the drives, and these. Chen nodded. We'll get a tech team on them tonight. Joseph sat heavily in his chair, exhausted. So what happens next? Agent Chen looked out toward the grove. The DO moves in bigger task force. We're talking federal racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to defraud sovereign nations. This'll go deep. She paused. And when the dust settles, we'll make sure the grove is untouchable. Permanently. Joseph raised an eyebrow. You can promise that? Chen looked at Thunder, who had curled up by the porch stairs. Let's just say the DOJ is terrified of getting on the wrong side of that dog. Later that night, as Mary bandaged a small cut on Thunder's paw, she looked up at Joseph and smiled faintly. Do you think Sarah knew it would go this far? Joseph shook his head. No, but I think she hoped someone would finish the race. She started. He reached down and scratched behind Thunder's ears. You did good, boy. Thunder gave a slow tail thump against the wood. In the morning, federal agents secured the hidden bunker and began processing everything. News vans showed up later that afternoon, but Joseph refused interviews. He had nothing left to say to cameras. Mary returned to the clinic that evening to check on 3 new dogs who'd arrived from a retired canine unit in North Carolina. Thunder padded behind her. limping slightly but alert. She knelt beside him, kissed the top of his head, and whispered, "We're not done yet, are we?" Thunder looked at her and barked once, not in warning, in answer. 6 months later, the sacred grove stood taller than it ever had. The fire-blackened trunks had sprouted green again, stubborn in their rebirth. Tribal children played beneath them. During naming ceremonies, laughter echoing through the trees. The ash had settled, but the stories, those remained. Whispered by grandmothers, carried in wind chimes. Etched into new wood, and through it all, Thunder watched. The German shepherd walked the perimeter of the grove at sunrise and dusk like clockwork. No leash, no handler, just instinct and memory. People started calling him the Sentinel. Joseph Whitehorse leaned on his cane outside Mary's newly rebuilt clinic, squinting through the Tennessee haze. "I swear," he muttered, "that dog's got a better work ethic than most folks I know." Mary laughed from the porch, arms crossed, cup of tea in hand. "That dog has better instincts than most cops." They both turned as Thunder approached, tail low, steps steady. He'd just completed his rounds, checked every tree, every stone, every foot of earth. He lay down at Joseph's feet with a tired huff. "Morning, soldier," Joseph said, scratching. Behind his ears, Thunder's tail thumped once, not a full wag, just enough, inside the clinic. Mary had converted the back room into something more than just storage. It was now a memorial and resource center dedicated to canine officers and their human partners. On one wall hung a framed photo of Officer Sarah Rainwater, her badge beneath it. Next to that, a plaque inscribed with the words, "Some heroes don't wear capes, they wear fur and carry memory in their teeth." On the opposite wall, Thunder's old vest hung next to a folded American flag and a Cherokee prayer, etched in cedarwood. Beneath it was a small wooden sign carved by Jacob himself. Thunder, protector of the grove, guardian of justice, friend to the forgotten. Jacob had recovered faster than expected. After weeks of rehab and therapy, he'd accepted a new role as tribal liaison officer with the federal task force investigating corruption on indigenous lands. He now worked alongside Agent Sarah Chen and a small team out of Nashville, ensuring that what happened in Millbrook wouldn't happen again. He came home on weekends, always stopping by the grove before heading to the clinic. One evening, sitting next to Joseph on the porch, he said, "You know what gets me, Grandpa? That dog never gave up. Not on me, not on Sarah, not even on this land." Joseph nodded slowly, because he remembered. Every step, every smell, every voice. That badge Sarah gave him, it never left him. Jacob looked down at Thunder. "How do you repay that?" Joseph smiled. "You don't. You honor it. That's all a man can do." The day the indictments were handed down, national news picked up the story. 63 arrests across 4 states, millions in seized assets. 3 senators implicated 5 tribal officials, expelled. Sheriff Robert Stonecrow, now awaiting federal trial, was being called one of the most corrupt lawmen in U.S. history. Nobody talked about indictments. They talked about Thunder. About how a broken dog found his way home and helped unravel a conspiracy that reached all the way to Washington. About how he protected his partner, even after death. About how he remembered the truth when everyone else tried to forget it. On the anniversary of Sarah Rainwater's death, Mary and Joseph organized a small ceremony at the Grove. No press, no politicians. Just people. Thunder stood beneath the great mother oak, surrounded by elders, children, and first responders. Jacob wore his new badge. Mary read aloud from Sarah's journal. Joseph offered a Cherokee blessing for warriors, both human and animal. Afterward, they planted a new tree beside Sarah's marker, a sugar maple, just like the one Jacob had planted as a kid. Mary placed a photo of Sarah and Thunder at the base of the sapling. Then she leaned down and whispered into Thunder's ear. "You did it, boy. You brought her home." Thunder licked her cheek, then turned and walked back to his spot near the edge of the grove, where he resumed his post just as the sun dipped below the hills. That night, as twilight turned the sky gold and violet, Joseph sat in his rocking chair with a blanket across his knees. Thunder lay beside him, head resting on his paws. "Funny thing about memories," Joseph said quietly. "They hurt more when they come back slow." Thunder blinked, listening. "I was so sure I was right, back when I told Tommy to leave." I thought I was protecting something sacred. Maybe I was. But I lost him, Mary. Everything. Because I was too proud to bend. He rubbed Thunder's back. Gently, you. You never stopped trying. Not even when the world went quiet. The dog exhaled softly and inched closer, pressing his body against Joseph's leg like a living apology. Or maybe a promise. Joseph smiled through watery eyes. You remembered what we all forgot. What matters, who we are, what we fight for. Thunder looked up Dot, and for the first time in months, he wagged his tail. A full, sweeping wag, Joseph let out a soft laugh. That's it, boy. That's the ending I've been waiting for. 1 year later, Thunder officially retired from active canine status. The badge was taken off his vest and replaced with a hand-tooled leather collar, bearing a new inscription. Thunder, he who remembers. Mary's Rescue Center had grown into a full-blown nonprofit for retired working dogs. About loyalty, about justice. They read Sarah's story in comic book form. They heard about the Grove, and sometimes, when they were quiet, Thunder would sit beside them during story hour. Eyes closed, tail tapping, like he was keeping time with their hearts. And Joseph, he finally started teaching Cherokee again to the next generation. Under the trees that had survived everything, with a dog sleeping at his feet, sometimes, late at night, Mary would find Thunder staring at the horizon, ears twitching toward the sound of coyotes or distant thunder. Do you miss her? She'd ask. Thunder wouldn't bark, but he didn't have to. Some grief doesn't need words, and some loyalty never ends. Thank you so much for following Thunder's journey. His story isn't just about a heroic dog, it's about memory, justice, forgiveness, and the ties that bind family and land. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What did Thunder's story mean to you? Have you ever had an animal in your life who refused to give up on you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Brave Animals, stay kind, and never forget who stood by your side.